Welcome to episode 8 of your favorite, the Grounded Podcast, man. No applause. All right. So I just want to say it's a very sappy moment. It's a very, very sappy moment for me because today's the last day of the Grounded Podcast in this space. So I had to put the comma on for emphasis. So after today, I'm actually going to start doing the Grounded Podcast in my office at the gym. So if I have the door closed and it's in the morning, I'm going to have like a little recording thing on the door, so don't kick my door down, please. But I'm going to be recording at the gym because the gym is expanding. I'm going to be in a new office. So it's a bigger space. It's a bigger office. So I'll actually have space to kind of set up a little podcast corner or whatever. So right now I'm driving to Bethesda, which for people that aren't in this area is about 30 minutes away from me. So starting next week, I will not be here. So this is my last podcast that is recorded at this facility. We've had some good memories here. You know, we've had some good coffee. We had one of the wall panels fall off the wall mid podcast, but you know, it all makes for a great story. You know what I'm saying? So episode 8, Grounded Podcast. I'm not gonna hold you, man. I got a lot to say today. I got some things that may insult some people, but I promise you, that's not my intent. As you know, through the pod, everything that I say, you have to 1, take with a grain of salt. 2, figure out if it applies to you, and 3. The only point of this podcast, just in general, is to make you think. It's not, for me, it's not a conviction podcast. It's a podcast that's supposed to make you think about what am I doing, and this is kind of an interesting perspective on, you know, whatever. Or it's like maybe this is how I think, and it doesn't have to be how you think about things, but it is what it is. So today, again, lazy boy, got coffee from Baltimore Tea and Coffee in Frederick. Baltimore Coffee and Tea Company over in Ballinger Creek, which isn't far from the gym. Hometown Barbo 5904 Enterprise Court, Frederick, Maryland 21703. And I got something a little different, something I don't usually get. I was going to try to save the first sip for when it started recording, but I didn't want to wait any longer. Man, I think I found the one. I got a cafe mocha with oat milk, extra shot of espresso, 2 Splendas. Man, when I tell you that thing, hold on, ASMR. That's the one. So this is like, it's giving hot chocolate with a little sprinkle of coffee, strong bitter taste from the espresso. Man, this thing hitting on something today. So let's get right into it. So really today's topic is more so about helping yourself and about trying to figure out how to get from maybe where you are to somewhere you want to be, or somewhere you want to be to, you know, vice versa, switching it around. So somewhere where you are to where you want to be, somewhere you want to be to, you know, get from where you are, I guess. But we're going to get right into it. So one thing that I have found and also learned to appreciate as I've gotten older is the beauty in the struggle and the beauty of progress in itself. So for anybody who's like an avid gym goer, or person who like just like works out a lot, is like really into fitness, what better feeling is there than something you may have failed on that you go try and attempt again? Whether it could be like, it doesn't even have to be like powerlifting specific or like, you know, bench press, squat, deadlift. It could be like, you know, I tried to do curls with the 40s and I could only get 3, and now I'm doing 10 with these. Like, you can see results, tangible results. And you can also like, you feel stronger. And I feel like that's like, you've kind of went through that progress of like, okay, like I'm trying to do this, but I can only do it for a certain amount of reps. The next week I try to do it and I can only get one more rep. And then, it's that feeling of progress, and it's nice. And I think for anybody, especially for people who go to the gym, that progress, like everyone says, it doesn't happen overnight. So it's kind of nice when it's like you can see the work being completed or being done. When you see yourself getting stronger, or you wanted to lose weight, you step on the scale and you're lighter than you were. Like, you see the progress, you could see it. And I feel like in the same concept as like in general life, what's better than progress? Now, to me, progress is subjective because it's on your own accord. It's on your own timeline. It's on your own, standards. So let's say you have a goal. You want to save money. And you're like, okay, by the end of the year, I want to be at 10K in the bank account. And let's say you're at 3K and you've been saving. Then you're at 6K. You've been saving. And then you're at your goal at 10K. That's progress. The beauty in it is that now you started something and then you finished it. Now, like, the ugliness in it and the struggle is like, okay, maybe I couldn't go out with my friends that day because I decided to take that money I would have went out with and put it away in my bank account. Or let's say maybe I, didn't eat that fine dining meal, or I didn't eat out as much or whatever. And I cut back on some of those things and I was able to save more money. And it's like, in the moments, you might have struggled with the desire of wanting to go out with your friends or wanting to do this or want to do that. But you're like, you know what? Like, I got a bigger goal in mind. So this is what I'm going to do. So that's kind of the key thing I want to hit on today, is like the bigger goal in mind, because life is all about big picture, right? Everyone wants to be, YOLO, live in the right now, da-da-da-da. All that's fine. Planning for the future is, sometimes can get a little redundant because you're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to make it 10 years from now, so I'm going to spend what I got today. But then 10 years from now, when you ain't got no money, you're going to be regretting them days you spent, because at the end of the day, like, let's truly think about what the money is being spent on, or just whatever, like whatever big goal or big picture, big thing you're trying to get to. Why risk it for such things that is either instant gratification, or things that like don't really matter? And I feel like we spend a lot of our time, myself included, doing things that do not matter, that like we've wasted our time. So I'll be honest for a second with myself. Oh, damn, this coffee hitting. So one thing about me is that, like, I'm one of those people who I have a extremely short attention span, and I am not my videographer over here nodding. Hey, I'm not talking to you, man. So I got a short attention span. So sometimes, like, I'll be working on something and then I'm like, I need a little mental break. So then, like, let's say I get on TikTok or I get on, like, Instagram or whatever, and I'm just scrolling. It's so mindless. And then 30 minutes will pass and I'm like, wow, I just wasted 30 minutes of my day that I cannot get back. I learned nothing. I achieved nothing. And it's just like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? And it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't have downtime, or like, what are you doing with your downtime? But the way that I view it is, we need to actually like think about the time that we're spending in our day, and what are we spending doing? What are we doing with our time? If everything is kind of about the bigger picture has to be set realistically. This whole podcast, all 8 episodes, I've been yelling about setting realistic expectations for yourself. That's what the whole podcast is about, being grounded in your expectations, like being humble. If you have this wild expectation, this wild big picture, it's going to seem unrealistic to you because, one, you're not doing the steps to get there. Like, you're not doing the proper steps to achieve that. But also, two, is that you're not setting like an actual like goal roadmap on the how. How do I become a millionaire? How do I become this? How do I do this? How do I do that? Are you doing the things? So you can't just go from, I'm working as a cashier at Weiss. I apologize to anybody working at Weiss as a cashier. I'm not cooking you. I promise. I'm just making an example. So I'm talking to the cashier at Weiss who's like, yo, bump all this. I'm going to be a millionaire. Okay, cool. Is that what you're doing right now, is that going to get you there? No, but that's your first step. You have a job, right? And what's the next step? The next step isn't, oh, I'm going to be a millionaire. No, it's probably maybe find a better job, maybe finish school so that you can get a craft, maybe learn a trade, maybe start looking into becoming an entrepreneur, whatever you want to do. But from the way that I look at it is, what are you doing? How do we get from A to B? A lot of times A to B, especially if B is like the end goal or the big picture, you can't really get to B. And it's not, and A to B isn't as close as you might be thinking it is. It might be more like A to Z, and you have the rest to fill in to get there. So when we're talking big picture, we want to be thinking realistic about what this big picture actually entails, because if this picture is too big, it might be to the point to where you get to the end of it. You actually get to, your end goal or whatever. And by the time you get there, depending on how long it takes, that may not be your goal anymore. That may not even be the thing you wanted to do. And that's why we can't rely on these like kind of superficial things to give us gratification, because at the end of the rainbow, there is no gold and you're not going to be satisfied. And that's why, like I've said previously, look at some of the richest people in the world who you think have all the money, power, success, XYZ. They end up taking their own life, or they end up going insane, or they have nobody, they have no family, they have no friends, they have nothing to share all this success and riches and stuff with. And the reason that is because that stuff doesn't matter. It does, but it doesn't. Like, if you can provide for your family, if you can travel when you need to, if you're doing something every day that you love, if you can, just try to live a little bit more simple and enjoy the things that are important to you. To me, that's how you get to that big picture, and then you can actually sit back and enjoy yourself. And like, I'm going to kind of get into this in a later point, but basically the 9-to-5 life isn't for everybody. It's definitely not for me. It may be for you, and that's completely okay. Like, again, I'm talking specifically from my own point of view. So the 9-to-5 life like isn't for me because, you think about it in what kind of society, like the societal norm, right? You wake up, you go to work, 9 to 5, you come home, you may go to the gym, you may go eat, you may whatever, you get a couple hours to yourself, and then you go to sleep, and then you do it again. You do that 5 days a week, and you have Saturday and Sunday to try to really enjoy yourself, and then you do the same thing Monday. And you do that over and 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 over to where you get really, really drained and washed out. And man, maybe you get a 5% raise at the end of the year. Maybe you get a Christmas bonus and you get an extra $1,000. Maybe you get a gift card to go eat at a nice restaurant. Like, maybe you get some like small little crumbs to try to give you satisfaction in a job that maybe you really don't like doing. But think about it this way. You work for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, however many years it is. Start working at, let's say, 18. Let's say you retire at 68. You got to work for 50 years to then enjoy. And maybe big picture isn't retirement, right? That's what I'm kind of getting at, is that like, don't set the big picture as like, oh, well, maybe I'll finally get to do everything that I want to do when I'm 68. No, like, me personally, what doesn't work for me is thinking that everything that I want to do in life, I have to wait until I'm at a certain age to do. I don't think there's a perfect age to do anything. And if you just see kind of the habits, like, what does listening society, where has it gotten you thus far? You got to think on that for a second. If you're just kind of going with the flow, sheep culture, going with the norm of what society is doing, what is the like leading problem in society today? If you had to say what it is, what would it be? I would say that it's probably depression, anxiety, lack of purpose, and probably just kind of along those lines of like an emptiness feeling, a void. What are we missing? And a lot of times when you get that filled, it's still not enough. And it's that constant feeling of like never being, enough or satisfied or whatever the case may be. And a lot of that is stemmed from like the workplace, because we spend more hours probably away from home or whatever, more so than we do with what we actually want to do or the people we actually want to see. When I was active duty, I was working 12-hour shifts. I was working 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I was doing that upwards of 4 times a week. When I got out of the military, I was doing a intelligence job to where I was working 7 straight 12s. I was working 96 hours in a week. 96 hours in a week. Basically didn't see my family for a whole week. Now, granted, I did have 2 weeks off after that, which was nice. So I was only working, I think I was working like maybe 2 weeks. Every other month I was working like 2 weeks out of the year, which was cool. But those 7 straight days of 12-hour shifts working 6 to 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., that was gruesome on my mental health, on my sleep schedule. That's where I got a lot of my caffeine addiction from. Hold on. But aside from that, like, that wasn't sustainable for me. And that might be an extreme case of like maybe what somebody's working, but you know, sometimes you have to like put the money aside. Like sometimes you even have to make a pay cut to do what you want. That's kind of what I had to do, to where I was working 12-hour shifts, making a very good living for myself, but at what cost, right? I barely saw my family. I was always tired. I had to flip around my sleep schedule just to spend time and like see my kids, and like that wasn't very sustainable for me. I knew that wasn't going to be something I could do for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Sure, I would have had, you know, X amount of dollars from working at a job like that with a good 401k and good insurance and all that. But I look back and I'm like, man, I was dreading going there every single day. Every single day. I was tired of being away from my family for a week at a time. It was just, you know, it wasn't worth the money. But that may not be important to you. So, you know, what are you going to do, right? Another big thing that I want to kind of discuss is like help, self-help. I know a lot of people out there, they read self-help books, or maybe they listen to a certain podcast that might help you in some capacity, or might make you, you know, want to go do something or whatever. And my kind of take on that thing, and I don't think I'm saying this because I'm not a reader, like by nature. I'm saying this because nothing works without action. Self-help books don't work without action. What is the point in reading about wealth, or reading about power, knowledge, or intelligence, or however you want to word it, if nothing changes in your life? You're still working at the same job, you're still doing the same thing, you still have the same habits. To me, you're wasting your time, because they're not working for you. Maybe they work for somebody else. If you read that book but nothing changes about your life, you basically read a fantasy. You have a better chance of creating action from reading Harry Potter than you do reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and you broke. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, bro. Oh man, I tried to tell you guys in the beginning of the episode that there may be some harsh truths, you know, some things you might not want to hear, but if you read in Rich Dad Poor Dad and you're unemployed, just go ahead and lock in, man. Go ahead, because again, I'm sorry, I broke character. It's just funny, man. People are funny. You just can't. You got to do something, man. You can't just read. You can't just rely on like watching something or reading something. Even this podcast. Now, if you feel like this podcast is a self-help podcast, to be honest, I don't even know what it is. I don't want to put a subtopic or subtitle on what this podcast is, because I feel like it's a lot of different things from different people, and I've heard a lot of different like feedback on like how they use this podcast. To me, I'll just be yapping. This is more so of my like, if I was if I had a diary or if I was journaling, this would be it, because I ain't writing or reading. So, but aside from that, you got to do something. Self-help books are nothing without action. What are you doing for you? What are you doing that makes you happy? I am a personal trainer. I'm a powerlifting coach. I've been doing it I've been personal training pretty much for about 7 years. Been powerlifting coaching for almost 2. And one thing that I say that I tell a lot of my clients, and this because to me, like, for some people, I feel like I've turned into more of like a therapist at times than a coach, like teaching people like how to lift or how to do this or whatever. I feel like a lot of times, like, I try to help people with just like with their life and stuff like that. And I mean, who am I, right? Like, but the one thing I tell people, especially like depending on like what your goals are, right? What are you doing for you? Like, truly think about that for a second. Do you have something that like makes you happy, or something in your day that brings you a lot of joy? Do you have something that you want to do more of but you don't have time for? And the reason why I tell a lot of my clients that is because, a lot of times we can be very selfless, especially if you're like a father or you're a spouse, or you have, a family that relies on you heavy or whatever. You spend so much time kind of outside of yourself, and you put so much time and effort into the things that other people are doing, and you're so heavily invested into everyone else, and you give so much up of yourself. You become that person that people go to when they have problems, and you have to work long hours to support your family, and you have to do this and you have to do that, and you're getting pulled in 50 different directions. And then, you're not going to see the progress that you want in the gym, or you don't have time to work out, you don't have time to eat right or whatever, because you're not doing enough for you. And this is kind of the time to like put yourself first. I told my client the other day, I said, if you become the best you, guess what? Everyone else gets the best version of you. You're a better husband at home because you're happy. You're a better father because you're happy. You're a better coworker because you're happy. So your happiness matters. Your happiness is important. There's too many people that sacrifice their own well-being for the sake of making this person happy, or I got to make my boss happy, or I got to do this, or and you're depressed, or you're crying in your car, or you're doing whatever because you're doing too many things for other people. Like, what are you doing for you? And you need to be a little bit more selfish with your time. Take a day off, even if it's unpaid. You'll make the money back, and go do something for yourself. Go get a massage. Go take a walk. Go shop. Go, you've been having the same pair of shoes that you need to get a new pair. Go do something for yourself that allows you to bring some type of joy. Just a little bit. I don't think it's a big ask. You don't have to do much. What are you doing for you? So just like a little life update. I'm looking into / working on starting a second business, like aside from the gym. And as I prepare for this next business venture, it's in a completely different field, completely different role than what I'm currently doing. And I'm trying to figure out a bunch of things about, managing my day, my time. I already have a lot on my plate. Is this something I can take on, the whole nine? So right now I've just been like kind of praying on that, trying to figure out the logistics and understanding, is this something that I'm capable of? But again, I kind of reiterate my earlier point of a 9 to 5 isn't for everybody, and it is most definitely not for me. A 9 to 5 doesn't mean you work less hours. A 9 to 5, probably, if you don't work a 9 to 5 and you're like an entrepreneur or a business owner or whatever, you're probably working a whole lot more than 40 hours a week, but you get a little bit more control of your day, but you end up just kind of working more. I'd say on average, I'm probably working definitely 80 plus hours a week. But to me, like, a lot of times the work, like, I could be working, but the work is kind of all day. Like, it's never like I'm never really quote unquote not working. My phone is always on. My emails are always being read and replied to. And most of the time, as soon as I open up my eyes to the time I close them, I'm doing something related to my business. So again, it's not everyone is built for that. Not saying that I'm built anything special, but like I feel like since I've been a business owner, I have a newfound respect for business owners in general, especially really successful ones, because I know to get to the point that they are, that first 2-3 years was probably crazy. Like hands down, this has been the most rewarding and the most difficult 2 years of my life, hands down. I'm finally getting the things that I prayed for. I'm finally achieving my long-term goals and dreams, and those bigger picture things are now the main picture. And, this is probably, within the last 2 years, this is probably the most I've stressed, the most I've cried, the most I've, just, it's been difficult for myself. And I've had to find ways to manage. It's kind of ironic to me because I always thought that like opening up a gym, I would have more time to like work out. I'd have more time to do more things that I wanted to do because now I'm a business owner and I ain't got no boss and da da da. Yeah, I didn't know. I did not know that these are the type of things that, I would be thinking 2 years in of like, whoa, this is kind of what owning a business looks like. You're not going to get, you have to love it. There's no half stepping in business, especially in a small business. And it's a heavy weight to carry. It's a heavy weight to carry. So that's just like kind of like some of the big things that I'm thinking about. And, I've even thought back like maybe I should go back to that 9-to-5 life. I kind of miss when I'm off. I kind of miss at 5 o'clock when it's time to go home. I'm home. Maybe having a boss isn't that bad. Maybe making that money wasn't that, you know what I mean? It's like, but it's all about risk versus reward. I know that there's a bigger reward in having a sense of purpose in what I'm doing every day. And that kind of makes it worth the stress, the long days, the long nights, the long mornings, all the stress and all the weight that you carry from kind of taking on other people's problems and issues. It's not an easy task. But to me, there's still nothing else in the world I'd rather do. There's literally not one profession or not one thing in the world that I would rather do than what I'm currently doing. And I feel like few people could say that, and I feel like I take so much pride in that. Not because of my own will or not because of anything other than, to me, by the grace of God, that I'm even able to be in this position. And again, there's nothing else in the world I'd rather do. Nothing else. The last point that I'll kind of, send you off with, episode 8, is look out for who you look up to, who has your ear, and everything doesn't work for everyone. So again, this kind of brings me back to the point of like self-help, certain podcasts. I was just talking to someone earlier, and we were looking at TikTok, and we saw like how certain celebrities they'll be on podcasts and they'll just be yapping about whatever to try to get you off your couch or whatever. Like, what are you doing with your time? What are you doing with your money? And they're filthy rich, filthy successful. Not saying that they haven't worked hard to get there, but it's funny about their perspective when they're like talking to like me and you. They're talking to everyday people, and they're like, sometimes you just gotta sow everything you got to start what you want to do. And then now you're on the street with no job because you listened to Rick Ross. He told you to go stand out in the cold, and now you got hypothermia. Like, it's things like that to where it's like, why are you listening to things like that? You got to take things that people say and first of all, does it work for you? Everything doesn't work for you. Everyone's not built to be an entrepreneur. Everyone's not built to be a business owner. It's like, to me, it's like, use what fits and do the things that fit your life. Do the things that fit the mold that was created for you. I guarantee you, no matter who you are, what you're doing, where you're at, if you take whatever you're doing or wherever you like to do, apply yourself, you'll be fine. And you'll find so much more satisfaction, and you'll be much happier by doing the things that you want to do. Everyone, I've said it 1,000 times and I'll say it again. Everyone doesn't want you to win. Everyone isn't for you. And that person that you could be asking for advice, they might be trying to lead you down the wrong way. You just got to think. Just think. I'm going to see you for episode 9.